Picture this. You're sitting in a tense, completely silent, marble-lined courtroom. The air is literally thick with anticipation. Up at the bench is a judge who has spent the last 19 years deciding the character of everyone who walks through his doors. About 30 seconds flat. And standing right in front of him is a woman holding the only key to saving an innocent man's life. But here's the crazy part. Instead of listening to a word she has to say, this judge is entirely fixated on what she's wearing. And his arrogant demand to change her outfit, well, it's about to trigger a chain reaction that shatters his courtroom, exposes a massive local cover-up, and brings a 4-star Navy Admiral stopping dead in his tracks. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are breaking down the absolutely incredible true events of Courtroom 7B. Take that off. That is Judge Everett Sloan, and his voice just cracks across the room like a whip. The woman he's yelling at is Claire Donnelly. Now, Claire isn't wearing a crisp, tailored suit. Far from it. She is standing there in a faded, olive-drab tactical jacket. It is scorched at the shoulder, the cuffs are completely frayed, and honestly, worse than that, she's wearing dark blue hospital scrubs that are stained with dried, rust-colored blood. Judge Sloan is just utterly disgusted by how messy she looks. He literally calls her outfit an affront to the dignity of his proceedings and demands she strip off the jacket before she even thinks about stepping foot near his witness stand. But listen, Claire is only there for one single reason, and that is the man sitting quietly at the defense table, Mason Keene. Mason is a veteran, and he is facing some incredibly severe charges. Now, as the judge starts threatening Claire with actual contempt of court if she doesn't comply, Mason catches her eye. He just gives her this subtle, almost imperceptible little shake of his head. It's this silent communication between two people who deeply understand trauma. He's telling her to stop. He's basically saying, "Don't do this for me." Because Mason knows exactly what kind of devastating secret she is hiding under that jacket, and he absolutely does not think his own freedom is worth exposing it. Okay, so let's dive into exactly why Mason is even on trial in the first place, because there is a massive gap here between the official story and the actual truth. We have the police report, which claims Mason, labeling him a disturbed veteran, launched this unprovoked wild attack against 3 unarmed men in a San Diego alleyway 3 weeks prior, and he supposedly left one of them, a guy named Trevor Langston, near death. It's worth noting Trevor's father is a very wealthy, powerful man who heavily influenced this official narrative. But then, we have the medical reality. This is what Claire is actually in court to testify about. What happened in that alley wasn't a brawl. It was a highly precise medical intervention to save a life. To put that into perspective, you just have to look at the timeline. The timeline itself proves the police report is physically impossible. Trevor Langston suffered a fractured jaw and a completely shattered orbital socket. At minute 0, right when the altercation ends, his airway is compromised. By minute 1, he's actively aspirating blood and bone fragments. By minute 2, without immediate intervention, Trevor would have literally drowned in his own blood. There's just no way standard paramedics could have arrived fast enough to save him. He only survived because of whoever was in that alleyway with him. And here is the play-by-play of exactly what went down in that tiny 2-minute window. Mason Keene dropped to his knees beside his supposed victim. He disassembled a standard ballpoint pen using his teeth, manually bypassed the obstruction in the throat, and inserted the plastic tube to open an airway. Guys, these are the actions of someone executing a highly complex, improvised medical procedure under extreme life-or-death stress. As Claire was fully prepared to testify, an out-of-control raging attacker simply does not instantly pivot to performing a flawless, life-saving tracheotomy with a piece of office equipment. But to actually get that crucial testimony on the record, we have to jump back to the courtroom, where Judge Sloan is still completely fixated on Claire's jacket. You might be wondering, why on earth was she wearing it? Well, the answer is the number 36. Claire had just wrapped up a grueling 36-hour shift at Pacific Mercy Medical Center. She had personally treated 17 different patients from a massive, horrible pileup on Interstate 5. She rushed directly to the courthouse with 0 sleep to save Mason, and she just grabbed the only piece of clothing in her locker to cover her blood-stained scrubs. She never, ever intended to wear it in front of a room full of strangers. But Judge Sloan, he does not care. His patience just completely evaporates. He orders his armed court officers to approach Claire and physically force her to comply. And as the tension in the room spikes to a boiling point, the judge starts openly mocking this faded, black-threaded patch on Claire's shoulder. He's loudly ridiculing her costume, but in doing so, he unknowingly broadcasts the words stitched right onto that patch. Phantom 4, and he yells it loudly enough that his voice carries right through a poorly sealed door, echoing out into the public hallway. And you will not believe who is standing in that exact hallway. Admiral Conrad Barrett, a 4-star Navy admiral who just happens to be waiting out there for an interagency meeting. When he hears those words, Phantom 4, drift through that wooden door, he just freezes. His mind instantly flashes back 4 years to a highly classified operation deep in the mountains of Yemen. You see, Phantom 4 was a call sign of the anonymous combat medic whose voice was the literal last thing his dying Navy SEALs heard before she miraculously brought every single one of them home. The ghost he had been searching for over the last 4 years is sitting just a few feet away, getting harassed by a local judge. So, the Admiral opens the door, and he doesn't walk in like a guest. He steps in like a man who understands the full crushing weight of a room going terribly, terribly wrong. He looks right at Claire, and with absolute, chilling authority, he just says, "No one touches her." And those armed court officers, they freeze instantly. They probably couldn't even explain why in the moment, but their brains just recognize genuine, undeniable authority when it completely bypasses the usual chain of command. Barrett calmly warns the judge that laying a finger on her constitutes direct interference with a sealed federal matter. Now, the judge is furious, obviously, but he knows he's outmatched. Yet stubbornly, he still won't drop the contempt charge. Mason is still in danger, so Claire makes a choice. Quickly, cleanly, she just unzips the jacket. And the entire courtroom falls dead silent. Because now they see what she was hiding. Both of her arms are covered in severe burn tissue and extensive surgical grafts from deep damage that nearly required double amputation. There are 2 distinct bullet entry wounds. And right there, right below the grafting on her right forearm, is the trident tattoo of the Naval Special Warfare Command, stamped with a highly classified date. Now, what's really interesting about this story is the number 11. That number jumps out to Admiral Barrett immediately. He remembers sitting in a tense operations center halfway across the world, listening to a crackling radio as Phantom 4 calmly asks for 12 minutes to save 4 critical casualties in a collapsed cave in Yemen. She didn't even need 12. She only used 11 of them. She saved every single man before she was medically evacuated with those career-ending injuries, and her file was completely sealed. Barrett walks straight past the gallery, completely ignoring the sputtering judge, and stops right in front of Claire. He delivers a precise, formal salute. Just picture that. A 4-star admiral saluting a nurse in dirty scrubs. He says, "My men came home because of you. All 4 of them." And in that single instant, the entire power dynamic of the room is just obliterated. The judge's arrogant narrative vanishes into thin air, and Mason Keene, sitting quietly at the defense table, finally lets the tears fall, fully realizing exactly what Claire just sacrificed to save him. So, with the judge thoroughly humiliated and forced to back down, Claire finally takes the stand. And let me tell you, she brings receipts. She points the court to one very specific injury hidden in Trevor Langston's medical file, a compression fracture on the radial styloid of his right wrist. Now, as Claire brilliantly explains it, this is not the kind of break you get from falling down. This is caused by the sudden, intense forced rotation of a joint. It is a textbook forcible disarmament injury, meaning the wrist only breaks like that because the hand is violently refusing to let go of a weapon. Mason didn't just randomly attack Trevor, he disarmed him. Which leads to the absolute most important question. What exactly was Trevor holding? Enter the smoking gun. Claire produces a single sheet of paper that the wealthy Langston family tried their absolute hardest to erase from existence. It is a hospital chain of custody receipt. When Trevor first arrived at the ER, Claire personally watched a 4-inch folding knife drop right out of his jacket. She bagged it, tagged it, time-stamped it, and locked it deep in the hospital's secure property storage, where those corrupt police officers couldn't make it mysteriously disappear. And the fallout from that piece of paper, it is immediate and absolute. The whole shebang just falls apart. The judge, furiously backpedaling to save his own skin, orders the missing evidence brought to the court immediately. The prosecutor is left standing there, completely speechless. An obstruction of justice investigation is instantly launched into the responding officers. And Harrison Langston, the wealthy father who thought he could just buy a conviction, has to sit right there in the front row and watch his manufactured case completely disintegrate in real time. All charges against Mason Keene are dismissed immediately. The aftermath of this explosive trial is actually surprisingly quiet. It happens out in the hallway. Admiral Barrett finds Claire and respectfully places his worn challenge coin right in her hand.
He offers her a highly prestigious, incredible job at the Coronado Naval Base as a senior instructor in combat trauma. But Claire gracefully declines. She tells the Admiral that she has another shift starting in exactly 12 hours, and the patients over at Pacific Mercy Hospital still need her. She doesn't need the world to know her name, she just needs to be useful.
Which leaves us with a really critical question to chew on. How often do we stop looking the exact moment we think we understand a situation? Think about it. The judge saw a dirty jacket and immediately assumed disrespect. The police saw a veteran with PTSD and just assumed guilt. The wealthy father saw a legal system he could buy and assumed victory. And every single one of them was dead wrong. Claire Donnelly won not just because of her incredible past heroism, but through hard evidence, unshakable precision, and a complete, absolute refusal to let arrogant assumptions dictate the truth. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.